Hi everyone, it's Matt from The Pen Habit. Welcome back for another video. Now I have at least once before in The Pen Habit done a review of a custom pen. And I'm very excited to be able to do a review of another custom pen, this time today from the Carolina Pen Company. It's a company run by a gentleman named Jonathan Brooks. And Jonathan's Carolina Pen Company, besides making custom pens, is a little different from some other pen companies in that he also makes his own materials. So a lot of the materials for the pens that come out of Carolina Pen Company are unique, one of a kind. Sometimes they're a very small batch. Sometimes he'll come up with really fun names for them. And the material of today's pen is one of those as well. So let's go ahead and go through the pen. I'll talk you through some of the statistics and the features of the pen, and then I'll do some writing for you. So the pen comes in this lovely little pen kimono with a tie on it. You just open up the tie and pull out the pen. And this is it. Now, at first glance, you might think, oh, it's a black pen. And it is mostly black. However, there's a little bit more to it than that. So first and foremost, you can probably see here in the video all of these really iridescent sparkles that are scattered throughout the material. Also, in certain spots, like around here, it's not quite solid black, but it's actually almost a swirly blue-gray. And the name of this material, which is one of the custom materials that Jonathan makes in his shop, is Opal Starlight. Now, this is a neat material because it gives you just a little bit of bling to what could otherwise be a fairly standard run-of-the-mill black pen, which I like a lot. I mean, you know me and bling. I like my bling. Unfortunately, Jonathan did inform me that the Opal, the little sparkle material, is no longer available for purchase. So he can't make this exact material, but he can make other materials. So that's one of the both plus sides and downsides to the custom pens, is sometimes the materials disappear, or sometimes the suppliers no longer exist. So that is the case here. In terms of the design of the pen, it's a fairly standard design. And standard is probably not the right word, but very, very streamlined. So a slightly rounded top here with just a little hint of a point, which tapers basically all the way down to the end where there's another one. Slight bulge in the middle of the cap and very slight bulge at the top of the section here. There's a join between the top section and the bottom section, and a clip here. Now, the clip is not the stiffest clip I've ever used, but it still feels strong enough that you could hold it in your pocket. Speaking of holding it in your pocket, one of the things that's really interesting about the way Jonathan built this pen was that the final turn when you're closing the pen, or the first turn, like quarter turn when you open it, is very tight. So, for instance, this section here requires a little bit of effort to get it going, and then once it goes, it's very smooth. And likewise, when you close the pen, that last quarter turn really kind of tightens the pen down. Now, the reason he did that, and according to his when I asked him about the pen, or when he sent me the specs on the pen, is he does this on request for customers who want it, because it keeps the pen from accidentally coming loose in your pocket. So if you're the kind of person who, like I occasionally am, I think I just hit the mic, who put your pen in your front pocket, this will keep it from accidentally unscrewing, which has happened to me on more than one occasion. It's a neat feature. He can do it by request for customers as they want it, so that's one thing to keep in mind if you were to order a pen from Carolina Pen Company. This model is called the Charleston, which makes sense with that whole Carolina Pen Company name, and fits very nicely in the hand, but I'll get to that in just a second. Go ahead and take the cap off, and you can, I don't know how well you can see it here in the video. My monitor isn't very clear, but right here you can see how that last thread is a little bit wider. That's kind of where I think that tightening down happens. Nice concave section here. The pen can be used as either an eyedropper or a cartridge converter, and this got a standard international converter in here now. I'll get the ink down to the nib to get ready for the writing sample. But like I mentioned, it can be eyedropper compatible, and I suspect this will hold a fair bit of ink in it. So, the nib is kind of interesting. So this is a Bock nib, and for those who aren't aware, Bock is one of the two major nib manufacturers in Germany. Between them, they make nibs for most of the European and American pens, and even some of the other pens out there, not just American and European, but even some of the Asian pens. I will say that it seems like Jowo gets used a lot more on American pens. So Jowo nibs are Franklin Christoph, Edison, the Goulet nibs. Those are all Jowo nibs. Bock nibs are, I find a lot more of the Bock nibs on pens manufactured for other companies. So I believe, is it Stipula uses Bock nibs, I believe, or Visconti? I don't remember, so don't quote me on any of that. I'm sure someone can give me some examples of who uses Bock nibs. But to see a Bock branded nib is fairly uncommon, at least around my neck of the woods. To see one made of titanium is even more uncommon. Now, I have had titanium nibs in the past and have not been terribly thrilled with them. They tend to be very rough feeling on the paper. They're hard to polish, they're hard to align. I just don't like the way they feel when they write most of the time. This nib is interesting, and I'll get to it in just a bit, but you'll notice here on the design it is a very matte finish rather than like a highly polished steel finish. That seems to be pretty consistent with titanium nibs. Really nice Bock logo embossed, very sharp embossing there, and it just says Bock Titan. And I believe this is a supposed to be a medium. Yes, it's a medium nib. And Jonathan told me that this is a titanium nib is a $50 upgrade over a steel nib. So you can get a steel nib if you want. If you want to try the titanium, he has those available as well. I believe he can also do gold nibs. There are additional costs to that. So in the hand, this is really nice. One of the things I like about this pen a lot is the elongated section. I don't hold my pens down here close to the nib. I never have. It's just not the way my hand fits on most pens. I like to hold it higher up. And because this section is so long, I'm not holding it on the threads. So that is probably the design I like best about this particular pen. It fits very nicely in the hand. Now this is an all acrylic or all resin pen, aside from the nib. So this will be a lighter pen than you're going to get for like a piston filler that has a metal pieces and things like that. This is a very, very light pen. So if you like pens, this is going to be right up your alley. All right, so let's go through the statistics, and I will talk a little bit more about the nib and do some writing. So we are looking at uncapped 133 millimeters. So nice long. This is a pen I would use uncapped. Capped, no, let me turn the cap around. You're looking at 144 millimeters. So it's a good sized pen, and I'll give you some comparisons in just a second. And then posting, it does post. It doesn't feel terribly secure, but it's long enough it really doesn't need to be posted. When it is posted, it's a fairly long 178, and I find it to be a little ungainly at that length. You are looking at diameters of 10.5, which I consider to be just 10.5 to 11 to be just perfect. Widest point of the barrel is 14.3 millimeters, and the widest point of the cap is 16.2 millimeters. And then, in terms of weight, you are looking at, I can't make it fit in the overhead camera, so I'm not going to try. You're looking at a very light 13 grams for the pen, unposted or uncapped, and a total of 20 with it posted or capped. So quite a light pen, especially for a pen of this size. I tend to like light pens, although that just does tend to be just a hint on the light side for me for a larger pen. One of the reasons I like larger pens is just a tiny bit more heft. So that is up to you. Now, I did mention wanting to talk just a touch more. Oh, before I do that, sorry, let's go ahead and do some comparisons. So here is the Charleston from Carolina Pen Company, and some other common pens. We've got the Lamy All-Star, the Montblanc 149, the Jinhao X450, and the Pelikan M1000. So you can see in terms of capped length, it really does hold its own. Now if we look at uncapped length, we've got the Carolina Pen Company Charleston, the Lamy All-Star, so almost identical length with the All-Star, the Montblanc 149, again, almost identical length there. The Montblanc's just a tiny bit longer. The Jinhao X450, so a little bit shorter there, and the Pelikan M1000. And in this particular case, I'm not going to do a posting test because this is a pen or a posting comparison. This is a pen I just don't think should be used posted. So, and it's my podcast, so I'll do what I want. No. So now really quickly about the nib. One thing Jonathan did say, and what I've heard from a lot of Jonathan's customers, is that he spends a lot of time on his nibs. And he even mentioned in the video, or in the little card that he sent attached with the pen, that he did have to spend a fair bit of time on this particular nib, on this titanium nib, because they can be a little tricky to align. So just know that if you're going to be getting a nib from him, he's going to do a fair bit of work on it to make sure it writes really well and writes to your specification. So again, one of the other joys of purchasing custom pens. All right, so enough of my yammering. Let's go ahead and do a quick writing sample, show you how it writes, and P.S., spoiler alert, it writes beautifully, and we will go from there. Okay, so this is a Carolina Pen Company, Charleston, with a medium titanium nib. And the ink for today's review is Diamine Red Dragon. Okay. Go ahead and do our quote. All right. So you can probably hear on the audio, this nib it's a little on the noisy side. That's because it does have a fair bit is probably a little overstating it. It does have a bit of feedback. It is not unpleasant feedback at all, but it is not buttery smooth. Now, I suspect that if that had been what was asked, Jonathan could have gotten this nib there. So I'm not concerned about that. He seems to know what he's doing with these nibs enough to get this to write beautifully. I will say this writer is just quite lovely. There's a little tiny bit of line variation here, but you're not going to get, for instance, the same kind of line variation you'd see on like a T-Flex nib, like on the Stipula Model T T-Flex that I did earlier. You're not going to get that level of line variation. It is fairly light in terms of line variation. So far, though, I haven't had a single instance of a hard start, of a skip, of any of those things. It has been just rock solid writer. We can do a quick reverse writing, and it's actually quite a lovely reverse writer. Again, feedbacky but not scratchy in any direction. So I don't know if he worked on that on purpose, but if he didn't, if he did, great. If he didn't, it's really lucky because most don't write that well. I'd say that goes to an extra fine line. The medium is just barely on the fine side of a standard medium, what I would consider a standard Western medium. Just barely. I mean, almost so much that it may be the ink or the paper that's giving me that impression rather than the nib itself. But overall, man, this is just a great writer. I've had it, this is my third fill of the pen, and I have loved writing with this pen. It is just, it's a rock solid writer. It fits wonderfully in the hand. I have to say I am quite impressed with Jonathan's workmanship and with the feel of the pen. I like it quite a bit. So these pens start at $175 and then go up from there depending on the materials you use, the add-ons you want, the nib you want, the additional features. So one of the things about ordering a custom pen is you can really get what you want. And what you want to be paying attention to is not necessarily the design of this pen, although if you like the design, that's fantastic. That's one of the models he supports, but the craftsmanship. Because if you've got a really solid craftsman, for instance, I did a review of a Scriptorium pen back in season 2. I will have another one of Renee's pens coming up in season 3 if I haven't posted it already. I'm recording these out of order, so I don't know which one. I'll have a couple of other custom pens reviews coming up as well. Just know that build quality is the key to what you're looking for when you're looking for a custom pen. And overall, I consider the build quality on this to be superb. It has been just a rock solid performer, beautiful fit, nice fit and finish, neat little features like that double tightening final thread, final quarter turn on the threads. So overall, I am a fan. So this has been my review of the Carolina Pen Company Charleston. Huge thank you to Rob for sending this to me for review. I'm sticking it in the mail as soon as I clean it out and get it dried off, and you should be getting it soon. So thank you, as always, very much for watching The Pen Habit. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and we will see you here next time on The Pen Habit. Thanks for watching. Bye.